Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you would like to receive daily updates about audiobooks. Feel free to leave book suggestions in the comments section. Living in the Light. A Guide to Personal and Planetary Transformation. By Shakti Gawain. Chapter 12. Feelings. One of the most common problems I encounter in my work is that so many people are out of touch with their feelings. When we have suppressed and closed off our feelings, we cannot contact the universe within us, we cannot hear our intuitive voice, and we certainly can't enjoy being alive. It seems that many people did not get enough real emotional support when they were growing up. Our parents didn't know how to support their own feelings, much less ours. Perhaps they were too overwhelmed with the difficulties and responsibilities in their lives to be able to give us the emotional response and care we needed. Whatever the causes, if we don't feel anyone is there to listen to us and care about our feelings, or if we get a negative response when we do express ourselves, we soon learn to suppress our emotions. When we bottle up our feelings, we close off the life energy flowing through our bodies. The energy of these unfelt, unexpressed feelings remains blocked in our bodies, causing emotional and physical discomfort and eventually illness and disease. We become numb and somewhat deadened. In every workshop I give, I encounter people who have been repressing their feelings throughout their lives. Many people are afraid to feel their so-called negative emotions, sadness, hurt, anger, fear, despair. They are afraid that if they open up to experiencing these feelings, the emotions will be overwhelming. They are terrified that if they get into the experience, they'll remain stuck forever. In fact, the opposite is true. When you are willing to fully experience a particular feeling, the blocked energy releases quickly and the feeling dissolves. When counseling someone who has blocked emotion, I support them in moving into the feeling and allowing it to overwhelm them. Once they've felt it completely and expressed it, it usually dissipates within a few minutes. It's amazing to watch people who have suppressed a painful feeling for 30, 40, or 50 years release it within a few minutes and experience peace in its place. It may be important to have the support of a therapist or support group during this process. Once you have experienced and released blocked emotion from the past, a greater flow of energy and vitality will enrich your life. It is important to learn to be in touch with your feelings as they arise. In this way, they can continue to move through and your channel will remain clear. Emotions are cyclical in nature and, like the weather, they are constantly changing. In the course of an hour, a day, or a week we may move through a wide range of feelings. If we understand this, we can learn to enjoy all our feelings and simply allow them to keep changing. But when we are afraid of certain feelings, like sadness or anger, we put on our emotional brakes when we start to feel them. We don't want to feel it completely, so we get stuck halfway into it and never get through it. Often, people come to my workshops who want to learn how to think positively so they won't feel so stuck in their negative feelings. They are surprised when I urge them to feel more of their negative feelings, not less. It's only by loving and accepting all parts of ourselves that we can be free and fulfilled. We tend to think of certain feelings as painful and therefore wish to avoid them. The experience of pain, however, is actually resistance to a sensation. Pain is a mechanism in our physical body that helps us avoid physical harm or notifies us that a part of us has been injured and needs care. If you touch a hot stove, you will feel pain. This is resistance to the sensation of heat that you are experiencing. It causes you to pull your hand away and thus avoid damaging your body. If you do touch something hot for too long and burn yourself, the subsequent pain lets you know that your body needs healing. So, on the physical level, pain is a useful mechanism in that it lets us know that we are in danger. However, if a sensation isn't really dangerous, you can relax into it and the pain will diminish and dissolve. For example, if you stretch a muscle farther than usual, it will at first feel painful, but as you continue to relax gently and steadily into the stretched position, the pain will be released. In childbirth, if a woman resists the intense sensation she is experiencing, she will have great pain. The more she is able to relax into the sensation, the less painful it will be. On the emotional level, it is our resistance to a feeling that causes us pain. If, because we are afraid of a certain feeling, we suppress it, we will experience emotional pain. If we allow ourselves to feel it and accept it fully, it becomes an intense sensation, though not a painful one. There are no such things as negative or positive feelings. We make them negative or positive by our rejection or acceptance of them. To me, all feelings are part of the wonderful, ever-changing sensation of being alive. If we love all the different feelings we experience, they become so many rainbow colors of life. Here are some emotions that people seem to be most afraid of, with a suggestion of one way you might handle them. Fear. It's important to acknowledge and accept your fears. If you accept yourself for feeling afraid, and don't try too hard to push past your fears, you will start to feel more secure, and the fear will lessen. Take risks when you feel ready to do so, but don't force yourself to do things you aren't ready for yet. Sadness. Sadness is related to the opening of your heart. If you allow yourself to feel sad, especially if you can cry, you will find that your heart opens further and you can feel more love. If possible, reach out for comfort and support from someone who accepts you and your sadness and can just be with you. Grief. This is an intense form of sadness, related to the death or ending of something. It is our way of releasing the old so that we can be open to the new. It is very important to allow yourself to grieve fully and not to cut this process short. Grief comes in waves, at first close together, then gradually, further apart. Grief can sometimes last a long time, or recur periodically for a very long time. It's necessary to accept it and give yourself as much support as you need to get through it, whenever it comes up. Hurt. Hurt is an expression of vulnerability. We tend to mask it with defensiveness and blame so we won't have to admit how vulnerable we really feel. It's important to express feelings of hurt directly and, if possible, in a no-blaming way. In other words, I felt really hurt when you didn't ask me to go with you, as opposed to, you don't care about my feelings. How could you be so insensitive, and so on. Hopelessness. This can be the result of not trusting ourselves, honoring our feelings and needs, nor taking proper care of ourselves. We may need to be more true to ourselves and more assertive. Hopelessness can also be a stage we go through when we are letting go of our old patterns of control, and learning to surrender to our higher power. Anger. When we disown our true power and allow other people to have undue power over us, we become angry. Usually we suppress this anger and go numb. As we start to get back in touch with our power, the first thing we feel is the stored-up anger. So, for many people who are growing more conscious, it's a very positive sign when they begin to get in touch with their anger. It means they are reclaiming their power. If you have not allowed yourself to get angry much in your life, you will start to set up situations and people that trigger your anger. Don't focus too much on the external problem when this happens, just allow yourself to feel the anger and recognize that it is your power. Visualize a volcano going off inside of you and filling you with power and energy. Often people are very frightened of their anger, they fear it will cause them to do something harmful. If you have this fear, see if you can create a safe situation where you can allow yourself to feel it fully and express it, either alone, or with a therapist or support group. Allow yourself to rant and rave, kick and scream, throw a temper tantrum, throw or hit pillows, whatever you feel like doing. Once you've done this in a safe environment, you may need to do it regularly. You will no longer be so afraid of doing something destructive and you will be able to handle the situations in your life more effectively. If you are a person who has felt and expressed a lot of anger in your life, you need to look for the hurt that is underneath it and express that. You are probably using anger as a defense mechanism to avoid being vulnerable. An important key in transforming anger into an acceptance of your power is learning to assert yourself. Learn to ask for what you want and do what you want to do without being unduly influenced by other people. When you stop giving your power away to other people, you won't feel angry anymore. Acceptance of your feelings is directly related to becoming a creative channel. If you don't allow your feelings to flow, your channel will be blocked. If you've stored up a lot of emotions, you have a lot of blocked energy or erupting emotions inside of you which don't allow you to hear the more subtle voice of your intuition. Often people need help in experiencing and releasing old emotional blocks and learning to live in a more feeling way. If you believe you need some help with this, find a good counselor, therapist, or support group. In seeking a therapist, ask people you know for referrals and don't hesitate to interview several until you find one that you like. Try to find one who seems to be in touch with his or her own feelings, relates to you in a real and honest way, and supports you in experiencing and expressing your own feelings, and in trusting yourself. Whether you seek professional help or not, make a practice of asking yourself frequently throughout the day how you are feeling. Try to learn to distinguish between what you are thinking and how you are feeling. Many people have difficulty with this. As much as possible, accept and enjoy your feelings, and you will find that they open the door to a rich, full, and passionate life. Exercise. When you wake up in the morning, close your eyes and put your attention in the middle of your body, your heart, your solar plexus, and your abdomen. Ask yourself how you are feeling emotionally right now. Try to distinguish your feelings from the thoughts you are having in your head. Are you feeling peaceful, excited, anxious, sad, angry, joyful, frustrated, guilty, loving, lonely, fulfilled, serious, playful? If there seems to be an anxious or upset feeling inside of you, go into that feeling and give it a voice. Ask it to talk to you and tell you what it's feeling. Make an effort to hear it and listen to its point of view. Be sympathetic, loving, and supportive toward your feelings. Ask what you can do to take care of yourself at this time. Repeat this exercise before you go to sleep at night, and at any other time during the day that feels appropriate. Chapter 13. Balancing being and doing. As channels for the universe, we must have available a full range of expression and emotion. If the higher power tells us to leap, we must be able to leap without stopping to ask questions. If it tells us to wait, we must be able to relax and enjoy a space of non-activity until the next message comes. We will always be pushed by our inner guidance to explore aspects of ourselves that are less developed, to express and experience ourselves in new ways. If we ignore these inner impulses, we will be forced by external life circumstances to explore the opposite polarities from the ones we are most comfortable with. One way or another, our higher self makes sure that we get the message of what we have to do. At times we may swing from one polarity to the other until we come into balance. You can expect that your intuition will lead you in directions that are new and different for you. If you are comfortable in one type of personality or pattern, you will probably be asked to start expressing the opposite. It's good to know this, especially when you're in the process of learning to hear your inner guidance. A good rule might be to expect the unexpected. One of the most important sets of polarities that we need to develop and balance are the energies of being and doing. Most of us are more identified with one of these energies, and disown the other. The two types could be called the doers and the beers. They roughly correspond to type A and type B personalities in common psychological terminology. The doers are people who are primarily action-oriented. They know how to get things done, and they usually aren't afraid to put themselves out there and take risks in expressing themselves or trying new things. Basically, they are good at expressing their outgoing energy. They have trouble receiving. They don't like feeling vulnerable. The most difficult thing for them is doing nothing, not being engaged in some type of constructive activity. Unstructured time makes them uncomfortable and they usually fill it up with lots of activity. They tend to be driven and have a hard time really relaxing. Their male, active energy is more developed, and they may be somewhat uncomfortable with their female, receptive side. Bears are mainly oriented toward inner attunement. They know how to relax and take it easy. They enjoy the subtle pleasure of life and often know how to nurture themselves and others, and how to play. They are usually flexible, and are happy to hang out with unstructured time. They may have trouble with action. They fear putting themselves out in new or unusual ways and tend to hold back a lot. They aren't very assertive and sometimes have trouble expressing feelings or opinions. They worry about what others will think of them. They may be uncomfortable in the world and lack the confidence to deal with people, business, money, and so on. Their female, receptive energy is more developed and they may be uncomfortable or distrustful of their male, outgoing side. If you are primarily a doer, your intuition will almost surely lead you in the direction of doing less. Your feelings will tell you to stop, to relax and take a day off, or a week, or 6 months, to spend more time alone with yourself, to spend time in nature, to spend time with no plan and no list, and just practice following the energy as you feel it. If you consistently ignore these inner messages to slow down, you may develop a minor or major illness. This may be the way the universe forces you to become more balanced. The hardest thing for a doer is getting no message at all, having to hang out and wait and do nothing until further guidance comes. I am primarily a doer, a list maker, a very active person, and one of the hardest things for me has been when the universe has forced me to do nothing. Yet, I find that those times are the most powerful and inspirational of all because that's when I can really stop long enough to feel my spirit. In fact, I finally realized and had to admit that I kept busy all my life in order to avoid feeling that power. I was afraid of empty time and space because it was actually so full of the universal force. If you are more comfortable with being, you will undoubtedly be pushed by your inner self into more action, more expression, more risk-taking in the world. The key for you is to follow your impulses and to try doing things you wouldn't normally do on impulse. You don't have to know why you're doing something or see any particular result from it at first. It's important to simply practice acting spontaneously on your feelings, especially when it comes to dealing with people, expressing your creative energy in the world, making money, or anything else you might normally avoid. Don't push yourself harder or farther than you are ready to go. It's very important to respect your own boundaries and rhythms for growing. Make sure the voice isn't coming from your inner authoritarian self, saying, "You should put yourself out in this way." If it's a should, it's seldom the voice of the universe. Rather, follow the feelings you have that guide you to practice expressing yourself and building your confidence in a supportive way. Meditation. Get comfortable and close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths, and each time you exhale, relax your body and mind into a deep, quiet level of consciousness. Imagine yourself as a very balanced person. You are able to relax, play, and nurture yourself frequently, and you enjoy having time and space in your life when there is nothing special you have to do. Yet you act on your feelings and impulses spontaneously, express yourself strongly and directly, and risk trying new things whenever you are inspired to do so. You live in the full range of being and doing, so you can follow your inner guidance in whatever direction it leads you. Exercise. If you are primarily a doer, spend one day consciously doing as little as possible. Take note of how you feel and what happens. If you are better at being than doing, take a day to practice acting on any impulse or inspiration you have, without expecting any particular results. Try several new and unusual things, especially things that involve making contact with people or putting yourself out in the world in new ways. Notice how you are feeling before, during, and after you do this. Chapter 14. Authoritarian and Rebel. The authoritarian and the rebel are two parts of the personality that many of us have in one form or another. If they are strong voices in us, they can make it difficult to sense and follow our intuition. If we are unconscious of them, they may control our behavior in a way that interferes with our ability to get in touch with our true desires. The battle between them can create tremendous conflict within us, as well. As in dealing with all of our inner selves, the first and most important step is becoming conscious of them. Once we become aware of them, we are already separating from being identified with them. We recognize them as part of us, and we begin to have conscious choice about how much power we give them. We can appreciate them for the ways in which they've tried to help us, and for what they still have to offer us. The inner authoritarian carries our need for order and structure and the rules we have learned about how we should behave. People who grow up in a home with a strong authoritarian parent figure, or in a very authoritarian religion, always develop a powerful inner authoritarian self who carries all the values and rules of the external authority figures. It tries to protect you and keep you safe by making sure that you follow the rules, maintain order, and behave as a good, responsible person. If you have a strong authoritarian self, you usually make one of two choices: you strive to follow its rules or you rebel against them. If you follow them faithfully, you are likely to be a responsible, law-abiding person and oftentimes a high achiever. You may, however, lose touch with your spontaneous, free-spirited, creative energies, and eventually, you may even feel that you've lost your soul. Some people react to their authoritarian upbringing and their own internalized authoritarian by developing a strong rebellious self. They become identified with the rebel and disown the authoritarian self, but it remains in the shadow of their unconscious, trying to control their behavior and constantly triggering the rebel into action. The rebel usually develops in childhood or adolescence, in an attempt to maintain a sense of self and find some freedom in an overly oppressive rule structure. This can literally be a lifesaver at the time. Unfortunately, the rebel is just a knee-jerk reaction to the authoritarian's rules. It reacts in rebellion to any controlling influence from inside or out. It will automatically do the opposite of whatever it thinks it's supposed to do. Thus, it is really no freer than the authoritarian. It's just the flip side of the same coin. It has little to do with the person's true desires, it just does the opposite of what it's told. Eventually, it becomes a self-sabotaging force, often inclined toward addictive and self-destructive behavior. Many people who identify with the rebel were the black sheep of their families, acting out the disowned energies of the other family members. They may continue this pattern in later life, always becoming the scapegoat or shadow carrier in every relationship. The rebel will fight against any energy it fears will control it, including legitimate authority figures, or your own internal attempts to create positive structure in your life. For example, your boss might make a reasonable request, and you become angry and resist doing what she asks. You decide to eat a healthier diet and your rebel immediately eats 3 pieces of chocolate cake. You decide to exercise in the morning and you find you've slept until noon. As always, when we are overly identified with an energy, we attract its opposite in our relationships. If you are identified with your authoritarian voice, you will probably have a rebellious mate, rebellious children, and/or rebellious employees. If you are identified with the rebel, you will constantly attract authoritarian energies into your life: the police, the IRS, your mate, your boss, etc. Whether we become overly identified with the authoritarian or with the rebel, these identifications are unconscious, so there is no real choice or freedom. When your authoritarian self is dictating your every move, or is constantly battling with your rebel, it is almost impossible to get in touch with your intuitive feelings or true desires. The key then is to become aware of, and learn to recognize, both of these energies. Try to notice when one or the other takes over, or when they are locked in conflict. Once you become aware of them, acknowledge them for trying to help and protect you. Then see if you can drop in a little deeper to intuitively sense what it is that you really need and want in this situation. A client of mine was frustrated with her career and saw that she was bringing about her firing. She was working in an office, doing administrative work for a salesperson. Although she had great organizational abilities, she found herself forgetting to do things. Her boss would come to her and remind her of what hadn't been done, and she would fume with anger. She realized she was getting angry any time her boss told her to do something, however reasonable. She felt she could not afford to lose the job, but she did not want to stay there either. She felt trapped. As we talked, she started to identify the rebel side of herself. She saw she was fighting with the authoritarian, who said she had to stay at that job, and against her boss, who was in a controlling position. She went back to her childhood and examined when she first developed a rebel inside. She saw that she'd had trouble with authorities at other jobs and in school. She realized she was being triggered by old patterns. When she saw this, she immediately wanted to change these parts of herself. I explained to her that she could not force change. If she tried to change or fix her rebel, she'd be activating it, and the rebel would continue to fight. She needed to become willing to watch herself react, to accept that this was the pattern she was acting out. Once she had really grasped what I was saying to her, I asked her to close her eyes and drop into a deeper place inside her self. She needed to ask her intuition what she really wanted. It turned out she wanted to be a saleswoman, but was afraid to try. She was growing angry at herself for sitting behind a desk when she knew there was something else she was meant to do. After realizing what she wanted to do, she was able to come up with several steps she could take to support her goal. She decided to keep her job for the interim and enlist her boss's help in her goal. She decided to conduct several informational interviews at sales companies to get ideas of places she might want to work. Having seen clearly what she wanted and discussed the action she could take to help herself, she felt much better. A month later she called me and said that although her authoritarian and rebel continue to fight it out, they seemed to have less power. She had continued to support her goal to do sales work and was feeling much better about her life and less reactive to her boss. Exercise. Identify some of your rules and behaviors that feel demanding and controlling, overly authoritarian, to you. Use the categories below, in addition to any of your own. I have given some examples in each category. Work. I must work 40 to 60 hours per week. I must work hard to get anywhere. I can't make money doing what I want. Money. I'm never going to have enough money. I must save money in case something happens. I must not be frivolous with money. Relationships. I have to find a mate. I must please my mate. I have to be monogamous. I'd better be satisfied with what I've got. Sex. I have to have an orgasm every time I have sex. I have to be in love with someone to have sex. I have to be the greatest, most sensual lover. Now write down any corresponding rebel thoughts you may have. For example, who needs work? I'm going to quit my job. Or who cares about money anyway? I don't need it. Or I'll just do what I want behind my mate's back. After you've written out the authoritarian and rebel dialogues, drop into a deeper place and ask yourself what you most want. Discover what is true for you. Write down any thoughts or feelings that come to you. Chapter 15. Relationships. Relationships in the old world have often had a primarily external focus. We try to make ourselves whole and happy by getting something from outside ourselves. Inevitably, this expectation results in disappointment, resentment, and frustration. Either these feelings build up constantly and cause continual strife, or they are suppressed and lead to emotional numbness. Still, we cling to relationships out of emotional insecurity, or go from one to another searching for that missing piece that we haven't yet found. We've been in this tragic predicament for at least a few thousand years. Now we seem to be approaching a crisis point. Relationships and families as we've known them seem to be falling apart at a rapid rate. Many people are panicky about this. Some try to re-establish the old traditions and value systems in order to cling to a feeling of order and stability in their lives. It's useless to try to go backward, however, because our consciousness has already evolved beyond the level where we were willing to make the sacrifices necessary to live that way. In the past, many people were willing to hang on to an essentially dead relationship for an entire lifetime because it gave them physical and emotional stability. Now, more and more of us are realizing that it is possible to have deeper intimacy and ongoing aliveness and passion in a relationship. We're willing to let go of old ideas about relationship in order to search for these ideals, but we don't know where to find them. Many of us are still looking outside ourselves, sure that if we just find the right man or woman to be with, we'll be blissfully happy, or thinking that if only our kids or our parents would behave the right way, then we'd be fine. We're confused and frustrated, our relationships seem to be in chaos, and we don't have the old traditions to lean on or anything new to take their place. Yet, we can't go back, we must move forward into the unknown to create new kinds of relationship. In order to do this, it's important to understand that our external relationships reflect our internal relationships with ourselves. My primary relationship is my relationship with myself, all others are mirrors of it. As I learn to love myself, I automatically receive the love and appreciation that I desire from others. If I am committed to myself and to living my truth, I will attract others with equal commitment. My willingness to be intimate with my own deep feelings creates the space for intimacy with another. Enjoying my own company allows me to have fun with whomever I'm with. And feeling the aliveness and power of the universe flowing through me creates a life of passionate feeling and fulfillment that I share with anyone I'm involved with. Taking care of ourselves. Because many of us have never really learned how to take good care of ourselves, our relationships have been based on trying to get someone else to take care of us. As babies, we are very aware and intuitive. From the time we are born, we perceive our parents' emotional pain and neediness, and immediately begin to develop the habit of trying to please them and fulfill their needs so that they will continue to take care of us. Later on, our relationships continue along the same lines. There is an unconscious telepathic agreement: I'll try to do what you want me to do and be the person you want me to be if you will be there for me, give me what I need, and not leave me. This system doesn't work very well. Other people are seldom able to fulfill our needs consistently or successfully, so we get disappointed and frustrated. Then, we either try to change the other people to better suit our needs, which never works, or we resign ourselves to accept less than we really want. Furthermore, when we're trying to give other people what they want, we almost invariably do things we don't really want to do and end up resenting them, either consciously or unconsciously. At this point, we may realize that it doesn't work to try to take care of ourselves by taking care of others. I'm the only one who can actually take good care of me, so I might as well do it directly and allow others to do the same thing for themselves. This doesn't mean we can't care for and give to others, it just means that we make a conscious choice to give or not, based on what we truly feel rather than out of fear or obligation. In fact, the better we take care of ourselves, the more we have to give. What does it mean to take care of yourself? For me, it means trusting and following my intuition. It means taking time to listen to all my feelings, including the feelings of the child within me that is sometimes hurt or scared, and responding with care, love, and appropriate action. It means putting my most important inner needs first and trusting that as I do this, everyone else's needs will get taken care of, and everything that needs to be done will get handled. For example, if I'm feeling sad, I might crawl into bed and cry, taking time to be very loving and nurturing to myself. Or I might find someone caring to talk to until some of the feelings are released and I feel lighter. If I've been working too hard, I'm learning to put the work aside no matter how important it seems, and take some time to play, or just to take a hot bath and read a novel. If someone I love wants something from me that I truly don't want to give, I'm learning to say no as clearly and lovingly as possible, and trust that he or she will actually be better off than if I did it when I didn't want to. This way, when I say yes, I really mean it. There is a very important point I want to make here. It concerns something I was confused about for a long time and finally understood. Taking care of yourself does not mean doing it all alone. Creating a good relationship with yourself is not done in a vacuum, without relationship to other people. If it were, we could all become hermits for a few years until we had a perfect relationship with ourselves, and then just emerge and suddenly have perfect relationships with others. It is important that we are able to be alone, of course, and some people do need to withdraw from outside relationships to a certain degree, until they feel really comfortable with themselves. Sooner or later, though, we need the reflection that a relationship offers us. We need to build and strengthen our relationship with ourselves in the world of form through interaction with other people. The difference in these approaches is the focus. In the old world of relationships, the focus was on the other person and on the relationship itself. We communicated for the purpose of trying to get the other person to understand us and give us more of what we needed. In New World relationships, the focus is on building our relationship with ourselves and the universe. We communicate to keep our channel clear and to give ourselves more of what we need. The words we speak may even be the same, but the energy is different, and so is the result. For example, suppose I'm feeling lonely and want my partner to spend the evening with me although I know that he is planning to do something else. Previously, I might have been afraid to ask for what I wanted directly. I probably would have stayed home alone and focused on learning to enjoy being alone. Later when I talked with him, I would feel some resentment, though I wouldn't admit it either to myself or him. Nevertheless, he would feel this resentment and become guilty and resentful toward me. None of this would come out in the open until later when we were having an argument and I might say, "Well, you don't care about my feelings anyway, you never want to be with me." At this point, I'm communicating to him, telepathically, my underlying feeling that he is responsible for my happiness. Now, hopefully, I would be more direct from the beginning. I'd say, "I know you have other plans, but I'm feeling a need for connection right now and I would love it if you would spend the evening with me. I'm taking responsibility for asking for what I want, and in doing so, I'm actually taking care of myself even though I'm asking for something from him." The key here is that my focus is on myself. This is what I'm feeling and this is what I want. I have to be willing to make myself vulnerable to do this. But I have found that it is the willingness to say what I feel and want that makes me feel whole. In a sense, I'm already feeling more fulfilled because I was willing to back myself up. Everything is out in the open, and he's free to respond honestly. Hopefully, he will check inside to find out what's true for him. If he wants to fulfill my request, that's icing on the cake. If he doesn't, I may feel sad or hurt. I'll communicate my feelings, again, I'm doing it for my own sake, to keep myself clear, and then let go. I'll use that evening as a time to go deeper within myself and strengthen my connection with the universe. I've found a very interesting thing. When I communicate truth, fully and directly, in a non-blaming, non-judgmental way, and say everything I really want to say, it doesn't seem to matter so much how the other person responds. They may not do exactly what I want, but I feel so clear and empowered from taking care of myself that it's easier to let go of the result. If I keep being honest and vulnerable with my feelings to my partner, family, and friend, I won't end up with hidden needs or resentment. When you take care of yourself this way, more often than not, you do get what you ask for. If not, the next step is to let go. Go inside yourself and tune into what your intuition is telling you to do next. Always let it take you to a deeper connection with yourself and the universe. Thus, an important part of creating a loving relationship with yourself is to acknowledge your needs and to learn to ask for what you want. We're afraid to do this because we're afraid to appear too needy. It's the hidden, unacknowledged needs, however, that cause us to seem too needy. They aren't coming out directly, so they come out indirectly or telepathically. People feel them and back away from us because they intuitively know they can't help us if we aren't acknowledging our need for help. It's paradoxical that as we recognize and acknowledge our own needs and ask for help directly, we are actually becoming stronger. It's the male within supporting the female. People find it easy to give to us, and we feel more and more whole. Following energy. I have found that when I'm willing to trust and follow my energy, it leads me into relationships with the people from whom I have the most to learn. The stronger the attraction, or reaction, the stronger the mirror. So, the energy will always lead me to the most intense learning situation. It can be frightening at first to try to live this way. We have always been terrified to trust our own feelings, especially in the realm of relationships and sexuality. Because this energy is so intense, so changeable and unpredictable, we fear that utter chaos will reign. We're terrified of being hurt or hurting someone else. We don't trust that the universe knows what it's doing, or else we don't trust ourselves to be able to accurately follow our inner guidance. And there's good reason for this. In the area of relationships, we have so many old patterns and addictions that it is often difficult to accurately hear our intuitive inner voice. Following your energy does not mean acting out every impulse, feeling, or fantasy that you have. That would be the road to chaos. In order to follow your energy constructively, it's important to be aware of the various selves or voices within you, which may at times have conflicting feelings and needs. Through this kind of awareness, you can begin to sense the deeper intuitive feeling of where the life force is trying to take you, while honoring important agreements, boundaries, and commitments you may have with others. Until now, most of us have avoided dealing with our fears by constructing stringent rule structures for all our relationships. Every relationship is fitted into a certain category, and each category has a list of rules and appropriate behaviors attached to it. This person is a friend, therefore I behave this way. This person is my husband, therefore he is supposed to do these things. This son is in my family, so this is how we act with each other, and so on. There's very little space left to discover the truth of each relationship. Some people rebel against these rule systems and purposely create relationships that go counter to our established cultural norms. Sometimes this is the case with non-monogamous relationships, homosexual and bisexual relationships, and so on. If motivated mainly by rebellion, these relationships may be largely reactions against the rules, and still may not involve a true attunement to our real needs. Just as every being is a unique entity, unlike anyone else, every connection between two or more beings is also unique. No relationship is exactly like any other. Furthermore, the nature of the universe is constant change. People change all the time, and so do relationships. So when we try too hard to label and control relationships, we destroy them. Then, we spend a lot of time and energy fruitlessly trying to bring them to life again. We must be willing to let our relationships reveal themselves to us. If we tune into ourselves, trust ourselves, and express ourselves fully and honestly with each other, the relationship will unfold in its own unique and fascinating way. Each relationship is an amazing adventure. You never know exactly where it will lead. It keeps changing its mood, flavor, and form from minute to minute, day by day, year to year. At times, it may take you closer to one another. At other times, it may take you farther apart. Commitment and intimacy. When we discuss the idea of trusting and following our energy, people often ask where the concept of commitment fits into this picture. Because we have been so focused on externals, most of us have attempted to make a commitment to an external relationship. What we are really committing to is a certain set of rules. I agree to behave in such and such a manner so that we can feel secure about this relationship. Usually these rules are not spelled out clearly, they are assumed. People say they are in a committed relationship but seldom clarify to themselves, or each other, what exactly they are committed to doing or not doing. Generally, in a romantic relationship, one assumption is that the partners are agreeing not to have sex with anyone else. Even that is rather vague, though, as no one defines what having sex is. Often the implied agreement is not to feel sexual attraction toward anyone else. Yet, how can you make an agreement not to feel something? Feelings aren't under our conscious control. We can make commitments about how we will behave, since we do have conscious control of our actions. Most people find that a commitment to monogamous behavior is a necessity in order to preserve the sense of intimacy they desire in a primary relationship. The important question is, do we make that commitment as a way of controlling our partner? I'll be monogamous so you will have to be, too, or from our own integrity, I choose to be monogamous because I want the depth of intimacy that it will create in my primary relationship. The real problem with many of the commitments we make or assume is that they don't allow room for the inevitable changes and growth of people and relationships. If you promise to behave by a certain set of rules that come from outside of you, eventually you are going to have to choose between being true to yourself and being true to those rules. When you stop being honest and real, there's not much left of you to be in the relationship. You end up with an empty shell, a nice commitment, but no real people in it. Because this type of commitment attempts to keep the form of the relationship from changing, more often than not, it simply doesn't last. The fact is that relationships do change form and no commitment can guarantee that they won't. No external form can give us the security that we seek. You could be married for 50 years and the 51st year your spouse could decide to leave you. If we only realize this, it can save us so much pain. People who divorce almost inevitably feel that they have failed, because they assume all marriages should last forever. In many cases, however, the marriage has actually been a success. It's helped each person to grow to the point where they no longer need the same form. What causes the pain in many cases is that we don't know how to allow the form to change while still honoring the underlying love and connection. When you are deeply involved with another human being, the soul connection often lasts forever. The intensity of energy in the relationship, however, increases or decreases in accordance with how much there is to be learned from it at any given time. When you've learned a great deal from being with someone, the energy between you may eventually diminish to the point where you no longer need to interact on a personality level as much, or at all. Sometimes, the energy renews itself again later on another level. We don't understand this, so we feel guilty, disappointed, and hurt when our relationships change form. We don't really know how to share our feelings effectively with each other, and so we often respond to these feelings by cutting off our connection with the other person. This causes us real pain, because we are actually cutting off our own deep feelings. I have found that changes in relationships can be less painful, and at times even beautiful, when we can communicate honestly and trust ourselves in the process. Most people believe that sacrifice and compromise are necessary in order to preserve a relationship. The need to sacrifice and compromise is based on a misunderstanding of the nature of the universe. We fear that there is not enough love for us and that the truth may be hurtful. In fact, the universe is filled with love, and the truth, when we can see it, is always healing. When I'm willing to be honest and ask for what I want, to continue sharing my feelings openly, I find that the underlying truth in any situation is the same for all concerned. At first it may seem that I want one thing and the other person wants something else. If we both keep telling the truth as we feel it, sooner or later it works out so that we both see that we can have what we truly want. For example, a couple who are clients of mine were experiencing a great deal of conflict about their work. They were partners in a very successful business. She was tired of the business and wanted to do something else. He loved the work and wanted to continue but did not want to do it without her. They fought constantly about whether to sell the business, her desire, or continue and expand it, his desire. Once they began to communicate on a deeper level, they uncovered their fears. She yearned to express herself creatively in new ways, but was terrified that she would not be able to successfully step out on her own without his constant support. She was also afraid that she would not be able to make as much money, and he would feel resentful about her diminished contribution to the family income. He was afraid that he would be unable to handle the business successfully without her. He depended heavily on her creative input and did not trust his own intuitive capacity. Also, he feared that his working life would be dull and drab without her warmth and humor. Having expressed their feelings fully, they were able to see that they were both at the point of making a leap into a new level of independence and creativity. They were ready to let go of some of their dependency on one another and develop more trust in themselves. She gradually withdrew from the business and started a new and very different career, which she ultimately found very exciting and rewarding. He continued to run the business and developed it in new and interesting directions. Their relationship was enhanced by their increased independence and self-confidence. For me, commitment in relationship needs to be based on a commitment to myself, to love, honor, obey, and cherish my own being. My commitment in relationship is to respect my own truth and do my best to honor the other person's truth as well. To anyone I love, I promise to do the best I can to be honest, to share my feelings, to take responsibility for myself, to honor the connection I feel with that person, and to maintain that connection. While we may have a strong desire and intention to maintain a certain form of relationship, a marriage for example, we can't have any absolute guarantees about a relationship's form. Real commitment allows for the fact that form is constantly changing, and that we can trust that process of change. It opens the door to the true intimacy that is created when people share deeply and honestly with one another. If two people stay together on this basis, it's because they really want to be together. They continue to find an intensity of love and learning with each other as they change and grow. Monogamy or not? People often ask me if I think monogamy is necessary in a primary relationship. I usually answer by sharing my own experience. As I mentioned earlier in this book, at one time in my life I experimented with non-monogamous romantic relationships. I found that while I had wonderful ideals of love and freedom, emotionally, it was way too painful for me. I also realized that one of my underlying motivations was my fear and ambivalence about commitment in relationship. Once I learned about the many different selves within me, I realized that some of my inner selves are monogamous and some aren't. In fact, I found this to be fairly universal. We all have certain selves who would love to be free to relate sexually to others spontaneously, whenever they feel like it. We have other selves who need and desire the security and exclusivity of a monogamous relationship. The vulnerable child within us, in particular, will not really open up in a non-monogamous relationship. Since showing our deep vulnerability to another is a key to intimacy, if the vulnerable child is not present in a relationship, we will not experience the depth of closeness most of us yearn for in sexual partnership. That level of intimacy is very important to me, so I came to the understanding that for me, a mutual commitment to monogamous behavior is an important element in my relationship with my partner. We understand that attractions to others are an inevitable part of being alive. We can feel and even enjoy those attractions while maintaining appropriate boundaries. If we are honest with ourselves and each other, these experiences can be part of our personal growth and the growth of our relationship. Romance. When we meet someone who is a particularly strong mirror for us, we feel an intense attraction, or we may experience it initially as a repulsion or dislike. Either way, there's a strong feeling. If that person is of the sex we prefer and has certain characteristics, we may experience the feeling as a sexual attraction. When the energy is particularly strong, we have an experience we call falling in love. Falling in love is actually a powerful experience of feeling the universe move through you. The other person has become a channel for you, a catalyst that triggers you to open up to the love, beauty, and passion within you. Your own channel opens wide, the universal energy comes through, and you have a blissful moment of enlightenment, very similar to the experiences some people have after long periods of meditation. This is the most thrilling and passionate experience in the world and, of course, we want to hold on to it. Unfortunately, we don't realize that we are experiencing the universe within ourselves. We recognize that the other person has triggered this experience and we think it is him or her that is so wonderful. At the moment of falling in love, we are accurately perceiving the beauty of that person's spirit, but we may not recognize it as a mirror of our own. We just know that we feel this great feeling when we're with them. So, we often begin to give our power away to them, and start to put our source of happiness outside of ourselves. The other person immediately becomes an object, something we want to possess and hold on to. The relationship becomes an addiction. As with a drug, we want more and more of the thing that gets us high. The problem is that we get addicted to the person's form, not recognizing that it's the energy we want. We focus on the personality and the body, and try to grab onto it, to keep it. The minute we do this, the energy gets blocked. By grabbing hold of the channel so tightly, we are actually strangling it and closing off the very energy we seek. True passion brings us together, but our neediness often takes over shortly thereafter. The relationship starts to die almost as soon as it blooms. Then we really panic and usually hold on even tighter. The initial experience of falling in love was so powerful that we sometimes spend years trying to recreate it, but often, the more we try, the more it eludes us. It's only when we give up and let go that the energy may start to flow again and we can experience that same feeling. Such is the tragic nature of romance in the old world. We've spent thousands of years trying to work this one out. Our favorite songs, stories, and dramas reflect and reinforce the externally addicted nature of our relationships and the resulting pain and frustration. In the new world, we are discovering something simple and beautiful that can heal much of our pain. The greatest romance of all can be our love affair with life. A love affair. I am finding that being alive is a love affair with the universe. I also think of it as a love affair between my inner male and female, and between my form and my spirit. As I build and open my channel, more and more energy flows through. I feel greater intensity of feeling and passion. Being in love is a state of being that is independent of any one person. Certain people, however, seem to intensify or deepen my experience of the life force within me. I know that those people are mirrors to me and that they are also channels for special energy in my life. I move toward them because I want the intensification that I experience with them. I feel the universe moving through me to them, and moving through them to me. This could happen through any form of exchange. The energy itself lets me know what is needed and appropriate. It's a mutually satisfying and fulfilling exchange because the universe is giving each of us what we need. It may be a brief, one-time experience, a glance or a short conversation with a stranger. Or, it may be an ongoing contact, a profound relationship that lasts for many years. I see it more and more as the universe coming to me constantly, through many different channels. What I have just written is an ideal scene. I certainly am not living it fully at every moment. Many times I am caught up in my fears and insecurities. However, I am experiencing it more and more frequently, and when I do, it feels wonderful. Exercises. 1. Take yourself on a romantic date. Do everything as if you were going out with the most loving and exciting partner you can imagine. Take a luxurious hot bath, dress in your best clothes, buy yourself flowers, go to a lovely restaurant, take a moonlight stroll, do anything else that strikes your fancy. Spend the evening telling yourself how wonderful you are, how much you love yourself, and anything else that you would like to hear from a lover. Imagine that the universe is your lover and is giving you everything that you want. 2. The next time that you feel a romantic or a sexual charge with someone, remember that it's the universe you are feeling. Whatever you do, whether you act on it or not, just remember that it's all part of your true love affair with life.